Because you've got powerful legs. How did you get the physique? Was it gym or how did you get the physique?
I've always been...
She's actually not got powerful legs. Do you shower in your dressing room? Do you have a shower on the day of a fight or not? Tell us about the tattoos.
Shut the fuck up, you little prick.
But then I've got the Phoenix.
Hey, prick.
So I'll take it from Bob every day of the week.
Absolute disgrace.
That's your knowing mind.
Move him out of here, Darren.
Ricky Hatton didn't go over for his fighter because he risked getting abducted and sold into sexual
I never said that.
Both have been rape victims. I'm not watching Frank Buglioni live on Saturday night. You're out of your mind.
Jesus Christ, get yourself a life.
He's actually a priest.
Yeah.
It's because his brother John Fury eye gouged him.
What have I told you all this time? He's going to end up sucked out, fucked out, looking for a handout.
Boxing nutters messenger group. I'm gonna be the king.
J-Pump, you know what I'm saying?
Welcome, folks, to the 601st edition of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse podcast. 601, a good start to 2025. Start with that fresh one at the front there. Looking forward to another year of chatting boxing with you folks out there. We've got Justin, we've got Des with us today. Hopefully we'll see Rob on here later as well. He usually pops on around, but it has been a little bit of a slow start, but we got some stuff to fill the time. But, right out of the gate, we had Jai Opetaia and David Nyika get into a spirited fight over 4 rounds, which ended emphatically. Opetaia registering the first candidate for knockout of the year at this point in time, and a hell of a nominee as well, just absolutely icing him with a left hand along the ropes. Naika was down. He needed oxygen, a nasty scene for a bit, but he seems to have recovered. But Opetaia, he was willing to get in there, get in a fight. He got touched a couple times, might have been hurt. Naika, not a little guy by any stretch, and he does have a background. These guys got a little bit chippy at the way in. It continued to the fight, and the fans were the winners in this one, as well as Jai Opetaia. David Naika going back to the drawing board, but probably going in there with higher stock than he came into this fight with. Des, it was a good time watching that fight. Pure entertainment while it lasted. But Opetaia, I mean, that finishing sequence he had was just absolutely ruthless, showing once again that, the lack of opposition in the division might hinder his argument. But this guy, he is something else. And I think regardless of who might be there, he probably would have an argument to be at the top of the heat. He's a good fighter.
Yeah. And how are you, Matty? How's your new year been?
It's been all right. It's been all right. The Broncos are in a playoff game. They're losing, but they're in a playoff game. So we're, it's going all right. Yay, America!
All right, mate. I'm glad to have you back. I'm glad you're okay. Opetaia is a good fighter. Opetaia is one of them cruiserweights. Now, the cruiserweight division has always been boxing's waiting room. If you're somewhere between 6'3" and 6'6", if you can punch, if you're dynamic, if you're explosive, if you've got a certain look about you, the natural progression is to go into heavyweights, into the heavyweight division. And we're all, as fans, we're all sort of like urging that move. We've seen enough at cruiser, Jai Opetaia. Can you get up to heavyweight now where it gets really interesting? If he's going to stay at cruiser, we need to probably maybe decompartmentalize little bits about Jay's career up to now and perhaps where he goes in the next 2 or 3 years if he stays at cruiser. I think Jay's had a decent career. I think he's gone 2-0 with Marius Bradis, and I think Marius is an elite fighter. So I think it would be fair to say Opetaia is an elite cruiserweight. I think we have huge disparity with Jay's opponents. So we go from Bradis to Jordan Thompson to Ellis Zorro, back up to Bradis, Jack Massey to David, is it Nyika?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, to David Nyika on Wednesday. And I think Nyika's probably closer to Jordan Thompson and Ellis Zorro than what he is to Marius Bradis. I think they're a long way off Bradis. So it's a bit very similar to the Anthony Yard train. We can't really get a measure of how good Opetaia is against the elite guys in the division for 2 reasons. One, he don't fight enough of the elite guys, and 2, there ain't enough elite guys in that division. I've gone a long way around the houses because Jay Opetaia is quite an exciting one. I think he's an elite fighter at cruiser. I think he's got something. I think this kid can go to heavyweight and have an impact. But I think there's some exciting fights for Jay Opetaia if he stays at cruiser. And you said there wasn't a lot of depth in the division. That's true. But there could also be a lot of exciting fights to be made. I think Billum Smith is a good fight from our perspective. I think Riakporhe from our perspective. But I also think the one that I'd like to look at, the one that I think would be exciting at cruiser, would be for the Ramirez fight. And I think that could be a real big fight for that division. And that division don't see many big fights. So I think if we just look at the cruiserweight landscape, I've named 3 there that get us through the next 18 months. And I could even imagine bringing in someone like a Beterbiev who comes up a division. Maybe even working something out with Lawrence Okoli.
That's something that Turkey has talked about, Des. If Beterbiev wins the rematch against Bivol, I think that's the only place he really has to go is up to cruiserweight to fight Opetaia or the Opetaia Ramirez winner, because it looks like they're going to be getting it on in May. So this year could shape up really interestingly if Beterbiev gets that other win against Bivol again. And
you've seen the way Beterbiev's built, haven't you? His legs, his shoulders, he's thick set. 75 to 200 is nothing for Beterbiev. You know, he'd have loads of food. He could pack it on. He'd be a monster.
He probably walks around at 190. I think
easy.
That's probably the lowest he's entering camp at. You know, I mean, he's probably just a walking around cruiserweight plus or minus 5 pounds.
And Opetaia's not a monster cruiserweight in size, is he?
You know, he's really close to Usyk's size. I think they're right in that ballpark, that kind of 6'3"-ish, and if they're filled out, they're probably 220. You know,
I don't think Opetaia would make it a heavyweight. I don't think Usyk got by with the size because he's so skilled. I don't think Opetaia would make a great heavyweight. I mean, going up is fine, but I just don't see him. I don't see a heavyweight champ. He's not going to be able to pull in Usyk. I don't see that at all with Opetaia. He gets hit too easily. I don't see him. If he does go up, great, but I don't see it working out for him if he goes up.
For some reason, I put Evander Holyfield, Johnny Nelson, Lawrence Okoli, Usyk. I put them type of cruiserweights a little bit bigger than Opetaia, just a little bit bigger. And I think that might be the difference. And I think that might be the reason perhaps Justin's come to that conclusion that he's not. I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Justin. Are you saying that Opetaia might not be big enough for the heavyweights?
I do. I think size wise, and I think, like I said, Usyk got by with it because he's like a one in a generation.
I'm not convinced either.
No, Usyk's a one in a generation talent. Opetaia is not that slick. He can't go up there. Okay, I can take Opetaia now. Let's say he got up to heavyweight, and you put him in the position to fight a Dubois in a year or two. Dubois knocks him out. Simple. He knocks him out.
Justin, that's a very, very good observation. You're right. as good as Opetaia is, he's not good at what you need to be good at to go from cruiser to heavyweight and be really
No,
successful. So
you
good
have if
observation.
you're like the Chris Birds, the Usyks, the smaller dudes, you have to be way more skilled than the bigger guys to survive. Because you're not going to be stronger than them. You're not usually going to punch harder than them. So you have to have other Opetaia's, like yesterday or whenever it was, Nakia, however you want to say his name, he was hitting him. He landed some huge shots. At heavyweight, Opetaia's not going to be able to take those because you can tell Bradis shook him. He's been shook most of his fights. He gets knocked. He gets shook a little bit.
Jaw.
Yeah.
Broke his jaw.
So imagine like him going versus Zhang, Dubois, even over the hill Joshua. All these guys. He can't hang. I don't think
he could beat Zhang. And the reason I'll tell you why is watching Parker fight the correct small man's fight against him, and I would rate Opetaia's punching power higher than I would rate Parker's. I know we haven't seen him at heavyweight throw anything. So I think styles make fights, and I would take Opetaia against Zhang right now.
To come in there, Matty, I think, right, the Bradis one is a bit, we can't hold that against Opetaia because Bradis is an elite fighter. I mean, if it wasn't for Usyk, maybe Bradis would beat Usyk. He was a top kid at 200, and he gave Usyk a really hard fight. I think Bradis, if you've got Bradis at the right time, Bradis could go up to heavyweight, and he would give an awful lot of kids an awful hard night, and a lot to think about. There's an argument to be said that the AJs and the Dubois, those guys that are not fundamentally sound, would struggle over 12 with a Bradis. So I don't hold that against Opetaia having a hard fight and getting his jaw broken against Bradis. That's what elite fighters can do to you. But he is 2-0 with Bradis, and a good 2-0. I think what I'd look at is his style. Justin made the point. He's a lot more than a crash and bang got up a guy. But his style is very dynamic, very explosive. He's very aggressive. And on Wednesday against Nyika, he was in such control and he was in the driving seat. I think he allowed Nyika to open up because he was setting traps for him. I think he's got that type of arrogance at 200 pounds. He definitely couldn't do that at heavyweight. But I'm not quite sure his motor skills get him that far in heavyweight because of what Justin said. You need to be very, very technically sound and cute. And I'm not quite sure Opetaia's that kid.
He just needs to clear out Cruiserweight. He's got to beat Ramirez before he talks about moving up because Ramirez is the logical fight. And I think he beats Ramirez, even though I think Ramirez is a better skilled fighter than Opetaia. I just think Opetaia has something that Ramirez doesn't have. I don't think Ramirez punches that hard at Cruiserweight. And I could see Opetaia stopping Ramirez, maybe. But I just think Opetaia beats Ramirez. Then after that, where, like you said, unless you bring people up, there's not a lot of options after Ramirez unless you start. And Beterbiev, I don't even know if he would. I think Beterbiev going up is going to depend on how he beats Bivol. If it's another, it depends on his weight. I don't know. Beterbiev's getting so old now. I don't even know if he would want to do it unless they pay him a ton of money to move up. I don't even know if he would. How much he has left anyway.
No, he would. He'd get a truckload of money. He'd get.
I was saying. I imagine if a unification versus Opetaia or Ramirez, God, I don't know how much money he'd be looking at. Well, win or lose, it don't matter.
And I mean, we've seen Beterbiev dropped before against Callum Johnson. I think you might have even seen him buzzed if you take a look against Bivol at one moment there, but hasn't taken a whole lot. I mean, he's cut and stuff like that, but as far as professional ring miles go, he doesn't have a lot. So I don't think I think if he beats Bivol, he's not done, but I don't know. Do you guys think, how do you guys think that rematch is going to go first take? We're about 6 weeks out.
I thought Beterbiev would win the first one. And I think the game plan Bivol implemented was the only game plan he could implement to try and beat Bivol, which was don't give too much away in the first 90 seconds and try and pinch the last 90 seconds. And it was effective in large spells. But I think Beterbiev got to him and figured him out. And I just think the second fight probably goes more substantially for Beterbiev. And history shows that's what does happen. But it was a very close fight, the first one. So there is an argument that Bivol could just tweak it a bit. But Bivol can't stand with Beterbiev. And Bivol can't make an imprint on him. So he's going to have to try and pinch rounds and stay out of trouble. I'm not quite sure you can do that over 12 and win a decision, but we'll see. Going back to the point Justin made, I think, or yourself, I'm a big fan of Ramirez. I think he's a very capable fighter that's come through the divisions. I think he's slick. I think he's technically good. He understands angles, and I'm not quite sure he'd stand in front of Opetaia. And anyone that doesn't stand in front of Opetaia, what we've seen so far, and admittedly, it's at a high level, they do give him a lot to think about. And I think Ramirez, with the right type of camp and maybe another fight and a little bit of activity behind him, I think Ramirez and Opetaia would be a brilliant cruiserweight fight. I think that's a good one.
Well, and like I said, it looks like that fight is going to go ahead for May. So that we're off to a good start this year as far as potential fights that look like they're going ahead and things of that nature. We've got a couple of good cards already planned. This month is a little bit slow, but we'll sneak into it slowly but surely. I didn't catch really anything else from that card, unfortunately. I know they had some other Australian fighters on there. Who's it? The Terramona Junior. I think it's actually Terramona Jr., but they just, put that all together, made him one Terramona. He was on that card. He got another win. He's one of those heavyweights that's coming up. I think Justice Hooney was on there as well. Let's take a look here. Yeah, he was on there as well. He got a W himself. Did you guys see see those other two guys? I mean, looking through the card, I think those other heavyweights those heavyweights are kind of the only interesting people to speak about as far as a future ahead of them. Maybe that Max McIntyre might be something to that kid.
No, just the main event for me, Matty.
No, that's fine. I don't blame you. It came on at 5 o'clock in the morning for me as far as the main event was. So it's like, I catch what I can catch. I didn't want to wake.
Yeah, I saw most of the undercard. Hooney, he's really stiff. I guess that's the best way to put it about him. There's not a lot of, he's just stiff. I mean, that's the best way I can put it. I see him definitely getting laid out when he goes up the levels. I mean, the guy he was fighting just was not nobody. He was just some random guy they brought in. But you got to figure though, Hooney, I imagine they keep him away from anybody for a long time. I don't see them really, because he's a pretty big draw right now over there. So there's no point of them rushing him anywhere anytime soon. So I think they keep knocking out these random South African guys or whoever they want to bring over, and they'll build him up a little bit more and then probably cash him out later on. I mean, honestly, if Opetaia did go up in a year or two, that's probably the guy that you'd put him in, because he would beat him. So that would be so actually, if you were somebody that looks into a crystal ball and says, how would I work Opetaia's career? I would go Unify versus Ramirez. If you want to move up, build Hooney up. Australians, I mean, they're paying $150 or something for him to fight that ex-rugby player.
And it's nuts.
So,
do you know that? And the government oftentimes subsidizes these events too. It's like, what the fuck? What a black hole this is.
So Hooney versus Opetaia and like some big rugby or cricket ground or whatever they want to do would make a lot of money over there. I'm saying that if you're his promoter, that's the kind of stuff that you look into the future for. And I think Hooney will be a cash out. Like, hey, we need somebody to step in to fight for a title he maybe doesn't deserve to fight for, but he has a name. He'll get knocked out and they'll cash him out, because I don't see him going anywhere really.
What about Terramona?
Same. I mean, the last heavyweight I cared about from that area was David Tua. Parker. Give Parker some love. Parker was better when he had Burger King back in him and he moved a little bit more. Those were the days. when he had Burger King on his
But now
back.
he's
And
had the best wins of his career.
Hey,
Like he's
when he
kind
was
of boring
when
now.
he was eating Burger King and dealing drugs, that was his prime. That's when he was at his best. Now he's just allegedly doing drugs. Allegedly. But yeah, that was when he was at his best. And I like Parker. I mean, I remember him coming up. He did something a lot of heavyweights didn't do at that time he come out. Because, he was moving. He was athletic. He had some actual skill. But it's good to see him back. Like I said, he's fighting Dubois, right? Ain't that the next fight? Or am I wrong on that?
Yeah, he's got Dubois. Yeah, he's got Dubois.
So
on that, yeah.
That's Dubois. If people think Dubois is going to be the next man, that's going to be it. Because Parker, Parker, he's going to give it, and he's going to come at him, and that's when we'll know if Dubois has fully there. Because I don't care. Knocking out Joshua, that doesn't beating Hrgovic and knocking out Joshua doesn't make it for me as far as you're one of the top two guys until you start. I mean, beating Parker, and if he beats Parker, then we're starting getting a really good rhythm going. But like I said, maybe I just don't rate Joshua anymore. I thought Hrgovic was god awful bad. I've never thought he was any good. So we'll see.
It's funny that we somehow got from Terramona over
Yeah.
to Anthony Joshua.
Hey, they're all from the island. Yeah, they're all from the island. It works its way out.
I bet I can pull Des into this on this one though. Even though you didn't see this fight, I know you caught a lot of the Olympics, Des, and Terramona he might have lost a UD to Jalalov, but he only lost by a point on 3 of the cards. So he's standing in there at super heavyweight with a very good fighter. Do you have any memories of that fight from the Olympics and thinking maybe there's something more to this kid? As I'm just trying to drum up something to say about this card.
I always think elite amateur boxing has now become its own hub, its own sport, and it's really hard to get a gauge because to win medals, so follow it back. Coaches need kids to bring home medals to keep jobs and to finance these institutions. So you create a style.
And in some countries to avoid imprisonment.
Right. So you create a style that is very risk averse and it's negative and it's quite unique and doesn't really have a place in the pros. More so now than ever before. There's always been that argument, but more so now than ever before. And you often look at a lot of elite amateurs and think they will have to spend 18 months in a pro gym with a pro trainer, undoing all the stuff they've learned to become successful in the amateurs. And every now and then you get someone that can transfer it. But I don't think the kid you're talking about is one of them. So we'll have to see in the next 2 years. And if there's a division where you can do it, it's the heavyweight division. But nothing jumps out at me about him to make me think this is going to be the next big player or even a part of the group of players.
What's funny, Des, is you talk, and I know that they're changed the way that amateur boxing has been scored over the last decade. But when you think about some of these amateur guys who ended up getting just demolished in the pros, it is kind of formulaic because they didn't really score body work at all in the amateurs previously, so people wouldn't go to the body. So then you go to the pros, and you have just these seasoned pros who take it downstairs, make them drop their hands and come over the fucking top of the right hand, and that's the end of their professional prospects. And it's happened about 100 freaking times.
And there's so many ways it can click. Sometimes you get a kid like a Rigo or a Loma that is so good, so efficient, and they can transfer it, but it's not always that appealing to the eye. It's not always television friendly. I'm not talking about the guys on this chat and the people that listen to this pod, but the average man on the street. Go and watch Lomachenko or go and watch Rigondeaux. Even to a degree, go and watch Alexander Usyk. And it's like, well, this isn't what I watch boxing for. So it's very hard sometimes to transfer that brilliance of the amateur game and make it conducive with a program. This is a conversation boxing fans have been having for the last 40 years. When you see a Roy Jones or a Ray Leonard when you see them type of kids in the amateurs, you know you're nailed on. But it's very hard to transfer elite amateurs into the pros. And the best example I can give you, and a lot of the people in the pod, in the chat, will remember the night very well. James DeGale won a brilliant gold medal in Beijing, one of the best medals GB's ever brought back. He got booed on his debut because people just didn't like that style, and he had to spend a lot of time undoing everything he'd learned and what had made him successul. So,
and I'd argue he never really.
It's a hard spin.
I'd argue he never really learned how to properly throw a right hook either.
Yeah, there's all that sort of stuff being thrown at him, but there's no debate, there's no arguing. He was a brilliant amateur, and sometimes it's just not transferable, or you make it transferable in your own unique way, or sometimes you just paper over cracks and wing it a little bit, or sometimes, mate, as you said, you don't last 10 fights. We see that as well. And
that's what the Cubans are like that. Yeah.
Sorry, Justin. In a bizarre twist, you get kids that couldn't win an area belt in the amateurs go on and win world titles in the pros. Sorry, Justin. Go on, mate.
No, I'm saying that's that's always been the thing with the Cubans. Always been a thing. And if you've noticed it recently, look how much money like Azerbaijan and Uzbekistan has put into their Olympic programs. That hasn't translated that well to the pros for them, and they're pouring millions into that. And yes, they've got a couple of decent guys, but if you look at, like when I watched the Olympics, the last Olympics, I mean, Uzbek and Azerbaijan, they were favorites to win almost all the medals or get there. And those guys just aren't translating over because they focus so much on that amateur style that you're right. It's just a different level, a different thing. And
but now
some guys can do it.
With those amateur tournaments with 6-figure payouts, though, Justin, like it's almost not much different than the pros either. I mean,
that's why Jalilov has never fully went into the heavyweights because he gets paid so much money to stay like I guess you call him like semi-pro.
See, the world that I came from, because I used to be an assistant golf pro, and I mean that just means you're a decent player. You're not like a subpar badass mofo. But the big dividing line between professional and amateur is always if you are getting paid money to ply your trade at the end of the day. So when you're getting a 6-figure payout for something, am I wrong in thinking that there's a threshold that's been crossed where it doesn't really qualify as amateur anymore?
Yeah, not when you're fighting, getting paid. Yeah, you're right, because I think they're paying the Azerbaijan guys and the Uzbeks. These guys are getting paid like close to $1 million to stay amateur. So you're right. The whole system, that's not really amateur anymore. If you're getting paid that much to be an amateur fighter, then you're a pro.
No, it's the same thing that's going on with American college football with this NIL money. They've turned it into a paid thing, and it's not so much an amateur sport anymore as it's just a different professional league. And I don't know. And then you look when you throw all that money in there, and amateur boxing is just so freaking crooked. It's probably not going to be in the Olympics now. I don't know. I don't know. Well, it's odd that we've gotten to this point, but I'll tell you what, the amateur system is fucked up. And if we lose the Olympics, we could see an absolute decline in the next generation of potential fighters.
Definitely.
What I would say about the guys you just mentioned, they are amateur, but the tournaments they're performing in are the most prestigious tournaments in the world. So that comes with a financial reward. So take boxing out of it because it's sometimes a little bit emotive. The 100-meter sprinters, if you've medalled at the Worlds and you've medalled at the Europeans, by the time you go to the Olympics, you're on your way to being a multi-millionaire just through income over the next couple of years because the tournament you're representing your country at is so prestigious. So yes, you're amateur, but you've got yourself into these amazing tournaments. That's the only way I can describe it or define it.
And it works for some people. I don't know. I think it's made the sport too strange. Too many lines are blurred. I think one of the biggest mistakes was taking the headgear off of fighters and the AMs. I think that, I know it's not perfect protection by any stretch, but I think that was a grand mistake if you look back on it.
One of my favorite boxing Olympic stories, and this story fell on my lap by mistake, really. You've got to go back to 1973, and America had 3 brilliant lightweights, and it was Howard Davis, Aaron Pryor, and Ray Leonard, and they all boxed off between each other. They'd all become golden. They all won their respective state golden gloves. Ray Leonard had gone to a multinationals and won it. Howard Davis had done the same, and Aaron Pryor went to the Pan Americans and won that. But they had to make a selection. Only 2 could go. So they asked Howard Davis to go in at, I think it was welter, or it might have been lightweight. And they asked Ray Leonard to go in at welter. Yeah, that way round. Ray both got gold. Howard Davis got the Val Barker Award. And your Pan American game champion, the brilliant Aaron Pryor, missed the cut. And he turned pro on something like $3,000, while the other 2 won gold medals and turned pro with millions of dollars. So, yes, it's very difficult to... that's my favourite Olympic story, and it highlights how clinical and ruthless the selection process is and the rewards to be had when you perform at these top tournaments.
Honestly, I think the United States Olympic teams from around 1960 to 1988, those were some of the best fucking boxers who have ever lived on this planet. Crazy
well, maybe
talent,
that's
crazy
talent.
That
is a one-off pod one day. We can talk about we could compare the 76 squad to the 84 squad.
Yeah, well, I mean, 88 had Roy Jones Jr., and I'm trying to think who else was in that one. Wasn't Riddick Bowe in 88?
Riddick Bowe was in that squad too, yeah, in 88.
And the USA's not producing teams like that anymore, though. Not even. We didn't even hardly medal the last Olympics. We are sending nothing. I know the last Olympics I watched, we didn't send. I mean, it was just embarrassing. I think we lost like in the first round like 5 times. There was just nothing there because we don't. USA just does not put the money other countries do. I mean, I know
they have
England,
no support. They have no support. Whatsoever.
England pours the money. All these other countries spend millions. I would think we don't put nothing into the program anymore.
You're more likely to you're more likely to see good boxing talent on a World Star Hip Hop video short than you are in a U.S. Olympic team.
Yeah, we have USA has completely dropped all funding for that. And you're right. If the Olympics do go, I mean, that trickles down, especially United States. I don't know exactly how other countries are going to work, but Maddie knows that's probably going to kill the Golden Gloves. That's going to kill all those regional titles because what are you looking for? Where's the carrot? The Olympics, the world champion. I mean, if all that stuff starts to die, then that means all those levels die. And USA Boxing's already struggling a lot right now. I don't know what would happen if you start just losing the top because the top's not that good anyway right now. So it could get bad. It could get really bad.
But if anyone gets a spare half an hour, anyone in the chat or listen to the pod throughout the week, if you get a spare half an hour, go and look up the 76 US Olympic team, look up the 84 LA Olympic team. And the one that got away was Atlanta 96. 3 brilliant squads. And another thing, have a look at them, see what you think of them. They're 3 brilliant squads. And it shows that America, perhaps in yesteryear, they produced some of the best fighters the world's ever seen at both Olympic level that could transition into the pros.
You're far more into the boxing history, so this might be something for you and Steve. I have a curiosity about not necessarily how they might have performed because you're really taking some huge guesses there, but who would have been on the United States 1980 team who refused to go to the Olympics
it's a great
Soviet
question.
Union?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, it's a brilliant question. Loads of brilliant athletes missed out, not just in boxing, but across the board. That's a brilliant question. Yeah.
So, God, I bet there's a great book about that somewhere. Anyways, we digress. So, there was also a card from the UK yesterday that I think maybe Justin was the only one who caught anything of it at all. Headlined by Caroline Dubois, who had knocked down Jessica Kamara. Then there was a headbutt, so it didn't go to the cards, unfortunately for her. Not a whole lot shaken on that one. I Destiny didn't catch that. Justin, did you catch anything from the Ben Shalom mega event spectacular?
I caught the when I turned it on, it was I don't know best way to put it. She was from Mexico. I don't know if she come out wearing that headdress. I saw her come out, then I turned it off when she come out. I turned it back on for the Simpson Woodall fight. And I think a lot of people on the WhatsApp group were saying it was an early stoppage. You could say it was early. I mean, it was early. I think he could have given him a little bit more time, but Simpson was just, I think, overwhelmed him more than anything else. So, yeah, you could have given him a little more time, but it was bad. I mean, like I said, I'm not trying to talk crap, but when you've got two women fight, I think on the card, and then the main event was, I didn't really watch the Caroline Dubois fight. I know I think she got robbed of a knockout. I think she could have got the knockout. That's what people were saying. But like I said, I watched the Woodall Simpson. It was good for as long as it lasted. But I mean, it was bad. Like I said, I think y'all discussed this before, but I feel bad you got to feel bad for the UK, and you got to feel bad for boxing fans, because Sky Sports they used to have good cards. They used to have good boxing. Now they are bringing out just god awful stuff. And you have to say this. It has to be Ben Shalom, because look at all the other promoters over there. Look at ones that we have over here. They can put together pretty decent cards, and they have like 10% of the resources he has.
You know who used to do a whole lot better as far as putting on cards over there with pennies on the dollar, what Shalom's probably putting in? It was Mick Hennessy.
Yeah, he had nothing. He had nobody. Look at Dimitri Salita over here. He's putting together okay cards, and they look like pay-per-view cards compared to what Shalom's putting on, and he has more resources. So it has to be, I would say, 80% him and maybe 20% Sky, but it's bad. And here's how it works in the world. If you can't do your job well, you're supposed to get fired. So he's not doing his job well. Either replace him or just get rid of boxing altogether, because he's shown he can't do the job.
The problem
he
is
can't do it.
The problem is they get in these long-term contracts that are
exactly
kind of honoring them, and that's, I bet if HBO could have pulled the plug on the deals that they had with some of the who became PBC fighters, who were probably just Heyman advised fighters at the time, I think they would have, and HBO boxing might have survived, but they were, stuck in that bidding war with Showtime, and they're stuck in with it. And you ended up seeing HBO boxing go down, and Showtime thought that they had won, and all that they won was absorbing all of the losses that HBO was sharing with Showtime boxing on these crap cards.
It's crazy now, because we don't have to go down the rabbit hole, but you just mentioned Al Heyman. Where in the hell happened to Amazon? There's Amazon Prime. I don't know what's happened there. He killed like you said, he killed HBO. Now he killed Showtime. Now he's pretty much killed himself, because there's nothing left.
Well, they have two cards planned for Amazon Prime coming up currently. One is David.
I'd rather watch BLK Prime.
Well, one is David Benavidez versus David Morrell, and that card also is going to have Brandon Figueroa, Stephen Fulton rematch on it. So I think that's a really good card, honestly. So I give him credit for that. That's a card I would normally expect to pay for. And then the next one is Gervonta Davis and Lamont Roach. And I think the only undercard fight on that one is Alberto Puello versus Sandor Martin.
That could be a decent fight, maybe.
They're both skilled back foot fighters.
We know Martin's not going to do anything, so that's a weird one. That's going to be that could be really bad or really good.
If anybody remembers the Richard Abril Sharif Beaujolais fight, it makes me probably think like it could be that. And that was one of the worst fucking things I've ever experienced in my life. So anyhow, here's hoping that that is not the case whatsoever. So yeah, PBC, very, very little to offer at this point
Yeah,
in time.
I just thought they were going to have at least 2 a month, but they hadn't even done that.
No, they haven't done anything at all, and I think it's because Amazon apparently, as I've heard, is very, very hesitant to put on any of the just on Prime cards for that just come with your subscription. They're wanting everything to be a pay-per-view more or less at this point in time, and it doesn't work that way. You got to have a product that promotes your pay-per-views, and that's kind of what's lost on everyone right now is nobody's like engaged in the whole build-up process and getting people excited about the sport by putting on good fights at times. But you never know. There's a few good cards coming up, and we'll probably touch on one of them because I think I'm taking next week off, but we'll see. But I got a fun little game for us here. I got 4 different weight classes where I have pulled fighters that are around the top 10, maybe inserted somebody in there otherwise, and we're just going to do some random pick'ems. But going through the other weight classes that aren't in there, a couple of the ones I just want to mention on. Kenshiro Taraji against Galil Yafai, that fight. The winner against Seiko Kui, I think is probably, if I could make anything happen at 112 pounds this year, that would be it. At 115, hopefully this Fernando Martinez Ioka rematch gets off the ground. Ioka gets the W. I would like to see Martinez against Bam Rodriguez. At the 122, the only fight that I think that really matters is Naoya Inoue against Junto Nakatani, and that's with Nakatani moving up. That's just me. I mean, Akhmadaliev is there. For those who don't know, Sam Goodman pulled out with the same cut again. He's out of the Inoue thing, I'm sure, at this point in time. They need to move on. He's fighting some guy, but we'll get to that one here later in a couple of weeks. But let's move into the first one. Let's see here. I had this is my 126 stack. All right, let's see what we got here. All right, I'm going to give this first one to Des. I'm going to give you the first one here. So I'm just pulling 2 random names from my stack here. Oh, and this is interesting because what I did on this one, Des, is you kind of get a 2-parter here because we got some already planned fights. So what would you make if for some reason this year you could make a fight between the winner of Brandon Figueroa and Stephen Fulton versus Angelo Leo? First, how do you think you see that rematch going? Does Fulton repeat? And then if they could ever make that the main event, how do you think that would go? The winner of those fight of Figueroa and Fulton against Angelo Leo.
So let me unpack this. We're at featherweight, aren't we? And we're doing Figueroa versus Fulton. Who wins it? And should the winner fight Angelo Leo?
Yep. And what happens there?
Yeah. It's a good fight, Fulton and Figueroa. It's a really good fight. And I'm a big fan of both. And I think
Figueroa, Fulton just looked a little shaky. I mean, you could argue Castro beat him in his last fight. He went down. You worry about him a little bit.
You do worry about him, but then if they can get to the 6th round, Fulton's good at the weight because he's stepped up one, isn't he? And he might, because he's a really cute Philadelphia fighter, a really good fighter. And Figueroa is a little bit one-dimensional. Yes, he's big and he's strong and he's marauding and he's got them brilliant long arms and he's got a brilliant pedigree. I've just talked myself around to it. Yeah, I think Figueroa beats him. I think Figueroa will have too much. I think Fulton will have to look after himself, but I don't think he know how to win the rounds that are necessary. I think Figueroa wins that one. And I like Leo, but I don't think Leo can do to Figueroa what he did to who was a Mexican kid that he
Luis Alberto Lopez.
Alberto Lopez. Yeah, I think Leo was brilliant that night, and I loved the way he was just slowly releasing the pressure valve, slowly getting more and more intense, creeping into the fight, dominating the fight, and that finish was amazing. I don't want to do Leo down, but I think Figueroa's the kid at featherweight. I think he's a really good. So Figueroa is the kiddie at featherweight. So I think Figueroa beats Fulton in a really interesting fight, and I think he beats Leo as well.
Yeah, you talk about a guy who really could, who will benefit from moving up a weight class. It's Figueroa, and I think when he gets to 130, kind of like Navarrete, he's going to find his best weight. And we'll see how long it takes him to get there. So, but anyways, Justin, I'm going to put those two back in here. So one could come up again. You never know. This is the who knows what could happen stuff. All right. So we have Rafael Espinosa against Ray Vargas. This would be a unification fight, technically.
Ray Vargas. That is. I wish we were done with him eventually. But you can't get rid of him. He cannot get rid of Ray Vargas. He just keeps popping up. Seems like he's been around for 30 years. I hope Espinosa beats him. If I had to, I'm going to say Espinosa. I just think he's on a momentum. He's on a run right now. He pretty much, he whooped Ramirez the first time. He made him quit the second time. I think Vargas has got to be close to being past it by now. So I think, I don't know knockout, but I am going with Espinosa to beat Ray Vargas.
Yeah, I think when it comes to Rafael Espinosa, what first was a real big fuck up for Arum, picking like the number 14 guy in the rankings. And you're like, oh shit, this is a 6 foot tall undefeated featherweight. I might have fucked up here. And finding out that you found a real diamond in the rough actually in Espinosa, it's just it's rather be lucky than good any day, and I think Top Rank kind of got lucky on that one.
I will say this though, it will be the first time Espinosa's fought somebody that's close to his height. That's like, he won't be completely towered over Vargas. That'll be.
Yeah, he'll only have a couple inches on.
Yeah, he's probably never fought anybody at this weight that was close to him. So that will be a little different. That'll be different. That'll make the fight a little bit more interesting because Espinosa's not going to be used to fighting a guy that he's looking almost like he's looking right at. So that'll be a little bit different.
Yeah, it's true. But sometimes people look a little bit better when they don't have to punch down too, because you make yourself very vulnerable.
Let's hope he stops. Let's hope he stops Vargas, and we'll just have to deal with that anymore.
Yeah, no split decisions needed.
No.
Let's get something conclusive this time, for the love of God. So right on. Anyway, let's see here. Let's do one more here, Des. So gonna have to pull you up in here one more time. What do we got here? I'm gonna pull out. We got the aforementioned Luis Alberto Lopez against Bruce Carrington. Not an impossible fight either, considering Top Rank.
No, it's not an impossible fight to make.
If Lopez fights again, he wasn't good after that. I think he had a bleeding on the brain and shit. I mean, shouldn't have guffawed there because he was hurt in that fight against Leo.
He was, and I mean, this is the very thing that makes Alberto Lopez exciting and must watch is what will undo him against someone like a Carrington who's quite disciplined, skilled. I think Carrington beats him, stands him on his head, and I think they'd pull him out late because I think he'd beat him too easy. Yeah, I think Carrington wins that one purely because at this stage in Lopez's career, the fights he's had, I think he's a little bit too predictable. His feet don't move as quick as they used to. He gets frustrated. His shape goes to pot. Yeah, I think he's all wrong for Carrington. I think he'd be the perfect opponent for Carrington at this stage in Carrington's career. Be a really good name on his record. I think he'd stop him late. It'd be a mercy stoppage. They'd pull him out.
Excellent. So let's see here. Let me find, the 135. All right, I'm going to get 135 next. As far as 130 goes, I think the one obvious fight that's going to happen this year is going to be a unification with Navarrete and Oshaki Foster. I think that's something that's definitely going to occur. So we'll see when that might happen. But for now, let's move it around here. And Justin, I have for you Mr. Gervonta Davis, and I know he's going to fight Lamont Roach, but I consider that a foregone conclusion because I'm a dick like that. and he's going, and I've got him. Oh shit! I pulled the ace from the deck for you here, Justin, Gervonta Davis, and Shakur Stevenson.
Oh yeah, a fight we will probably never see. I guess it's good to talk about it. Who knows with Gervonta Davis? We don't even. You saw his hair on Instagram or something. So I don't know what the hell he's got going on nowadays, but he's with Gervonta Davis. I guess the big thing is going to be the mindset. Is he going to? Well, we don't know what he's doing. I mean, he hadn't fought. We're going on a year now, right? Since he's fought now, you're right. He's going to knock out Lamont Roach, so that's not really a big deal. If I had to bet money, I would say Davis would get to Shakur Stevenson late somehow. Because even though, if you think about it, look at Gervonta Davis. He hasn't fought a great resume, but it's 10 times better than Stevenson, in my opinion. So it's like, and Davis has always shown the ability to break his guys down somehow. Except for Isaac, but Isaac Cruz is just a tough guy. You can't really. People always try to make that a negative because he went 12 rounds, but Cruz is tough.
I think he was a late opponent, a late replacement too.
And Cruz is so little, and that's just a hard guy. That's a hard guy to figure out on late notice. A guy who's like just his body type and how tough he is. You can't really count that as
Tank is used to punching upwards. Again, another guy who's just not used to punching down.
So I think Shakur, for the first time in Shakur Stevenson's life, he's going to fight a guy who's just as skilled as he is. And he's never fought a guy who is just as skilled as he is, and that's in their prime. And they'll both be in their prime, and they'll both have the same level. But the difference is Davis can punch, and Stevenson's not a great. I don't think Stevenson has the best. He couldn't hurt Davis. I don't think. So I would lean Davis in that fight.
This is one of those why I feel like I have to let you get in here. I can't ask about Shakur Stevenson against Gervonta Davis and not ask your opinion. That would be unfair.
Yeah, cheers, mate. I like that. Thank you, mate. A lot of things Justin said there, I'd agree with. Like he said about who would I put money on. I don't think anyone backs against Gervonta Davis. Not a lightweight. I've never seen a version of Shakur Stevenson that's good enough to beat what I've seen from Tank. Tank shows up, and Tank can throw punches short. And when I say that, I mean he doesn't need to be at range. He doesn't need to pounce. He can be in the pocket and just throw them short. And because of that, he can turn a body shot into an uppercut, or he can just step across and throw a short left hook. And the unique beauty of Gervonta Davis is that them short punches put people to sleep. He's a very, very special talent. And I think Shakur Stevenson has been a little bit slow. He's come off the boil. He's meandered along at a steady pace. And that's not how... It's similar to what I said about Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk. The trajectory and the pathway into your biggest fight, you need to have a really good run. And Shakur Stevenson has not looked good enough. So nothing I've seen from Shakur beats Tank Davis. Tank's the best at lightweight. I think he goes through a lot of them.
Yeah, it's one of those where it's kind of like the trump card, and it's just like, oh, that's the winner of the division. But let's see what else we got going on here. I got God damn it! How the hell did I grab those two? I'm just pulling those out of the deck. Let's see here. There we go. Raymond Murataya against. Oh, here you go. Interesting one here. So it's Raymond Murataya, Des, against the winner of Dennis Baranchek and Keyshawn Davis, which is happening in about a month's time.
Yeah, we like Murataya. He's a good fighter, and he's had a couple of good wins.
But Farmer gave him fits too. I mean, I think that's what's hanging over his head.
He did, but he got straight out against Perez Campos. Although he's not the level of what Tevin Farmer was, but then Tevin Farmer shouldn't have given Murataya as many problems as what he did. But Tevin Farmer's a good fighter.
He did the same thing to Zepeda a couple months later.
He did, correct. And this is why we mustn't hold that against Murataya, because Tevin Farmer is a really cute, slick operator that's been around, and you're never going to have an easy night with Tevin. I'm really big on Keyshaw. He's up there as my prospects of last year. I think he's had an amazing 23 and a 24. I think every time he was asked to step up, he really did. He looked brilliant against Daniel Lemos. I think he was amazing that night. And a lot of people didn't fancy Lemos, but they fancied Lemos to give Keyshaw a lot of problems.
Yeah, but he just got done giving Hitchinson all he could handle.
All he could handle,
people,
correct.
myself included, believe he beat Hitchinson.
But on this pod, I said the better the opponent, the better Keyshaw turns up, and Keyshaw will light Lemos up, and he did. He was brilliant. I think Murataya is a really good fighter. I think Keyshaw is an exceptionally good prospect who's gonna dominate a couple of divisions over the next 5 or 6 years. I think he's brilliant, and this is the division to be in, because they're all there, and you've got a good group at the top, and you've got an exceptionally good group coming up behind them. Keyshaw's one of them. I think Keyshaw beats Murataya, but you shouldn't hold that against Murataya, because Keyshaw's going to be a big star, and Murataya's a good fighter. I'll go for Keyshaw.
Yeah, and I don't think this back-to-back is impossible. If Davis gets through Baranchek without issue, Murataya is another top-ranked fighter. It's another easy in-house fight to make. Bob loves him. That's why he likes getting his hands on those titles. He can just keep running his guys through his mandatories, et cetera, et cetera. So let's do one more in that. And
Matty, sorry, mate. Sorry. So I think Keyshaw, I didn't answer the first bit. Sorry, mate. I think Keyshaw knows too much for Baranchek, and he beats Murataya. Sorry, I forgot you asked me about the Baranchek one as well.
Yeah, no worries. Let's see here. Oh, this is a really funky one. Rumors of his retirement were incorrect. Justin, what do you think of Vasily Lomachenko against William Zepeda?
Well, it depends on. I think Lomachenko's. If he's got anything left, God, Zepeda is just a bulldozer. That's the only thing about Zepeda.
He wasn't able to bulldoze Farmer, though. I mean, I know he hurt his hand.
But Farmer, you got
to
think about it, though. Farmer, I mean, he can hang. I mean, that's look at Murataya. We just talked about it. Farmer can hang. It's hard to blast Farmer out, but if this is one of those things, it's down to this: if Lomachenko has anything left, he'll beat Zepeda. I think he could just do enough to get up the points, and I think he could frustrate Zepeda.
He could move around him.
Yeah, he could just, because Zepeda showed the Farmer. Zepeda, we knew this was coming because how many times we've all been watching boxing most of our lives. When you've got a guy who comes forward full blast, who beats him? The guy who can move, the guy who can turn him, the guy who can put him off his spot. And if Lomachenko still has his sweet dance moves, he should be able to do enough to outpoint Zepeda. Of course, he's not going to stop him, but it should be close. I mean, we could be looking at 115, 113, because Zepeda is going to get a lot of rounds just from straight up. He's not going to stop. But I would say Lomachenko will win a really close fight, but he'll beat Zepeda, but it'll be close. Now, Zepeda, some way on whatever could happen, if he could somehow stop Lomachenko, because I think if he beats Lomachenko, it's a good win, but it's not a win like it would have been 2-3 years ago. If Zepeda wants to be a superstar, he stops Lomachenko. That's what, how over the years, to go to a top-level guy to a superstar, this is your superstar fight. If he could somehow find that shot and stop Lomachenko, then he's, especially being Hispanic, he is top. But I think Lomachenko edges him. I think it's tight. I think it's a good fight. I think Lomachenko is going to have to use every single trick that he knows, because he's going to have to go to everything he's ever done. He's going to have to use it all but I think he wins a close one.
Yeah, that was a good fight. I was kind of glad that I pulled that one out there. I was really high on Zepeda. I still am, but obviously I have some reservations after what happened in the Farmer fight. He's the kind of guy who wants to move you into position where he can do his work, and unfortunately, Lomachenko is a master of getting you out of position. So
the only thing I'd say about that, Michael Thompson makes a really good point there as usual. But the only thing I'd say about this, I agree with a lot of what Justice said there. I'd fancy Lomachenko, but there's a caveat there. There's just they've kept Zepeda very busy over the last 3 years, and Lomachenko's been really inactive. And at that age, it's inactivity that catches you out. You don't get going till around 8 or 9, and by then it's away from you. So if that did happen in the early part of 25, I think inactivity was something that could catch Lomachenko out.
You know, funny enough is if Zepeda is to win this fight over Lomachenko, if this was to happen, the way I would actually honestly think he would have the best chance of doing it is by catching Lomachenko early, where he has at times shown a little bit of vulnerability, just, you know, trying to catch timing and stuff like that. And if he can catch him cold early, where it take his legs away a little bit, he could potentially just pour it on him over a couple of early rounds and get an early stoppage on him just by not giving him a chance to recover. The longer that fight goes on, honestly, the worse it would look for Zepeda, in my opinion. Lomachenko is just so smart down the stretch.
That first scenario could definitely happen.
Yeah.
Lomachenko for the first 6 rounds could be really cold, and Zepeda, the puncher, could get hold of him. Sorry, Just, go on, mate.
No, I was just saying, this is why we love Lomachenko. Who the hell is going to say, I'm going to retire, and then come back and fight this guy? Like, this is why even if you don't like him, and even if you think he might be overrated, Lomachenko is a boxing fan's fighter, because he could have come back and fought anybody and probably got paid the same money, but he decided to fight this guy. This is why you have to give Lomachenko respect, and you have to say he's one of the top guys around, because nobody comes back to fight these guys when you're talking about retirement and you're at the end of your career. That's why I'm a fan of Lomachenko. I think that's why most people on here are, because he don't want no easy touch. Just put him right in with the guy.
Yeah, honestly, the easiest touch of his career that I can think of off the top of my head is Kambosos. I feel bad saying that about George, but that's just my opinion. But anyways, let's see here. We're going up to 140 pounds here, where I thought that as I looked at it, I'm like, there's some better fights here than meets the eye. So let's pull from the docket here, and let's see here. Richardson Hitchens, newly crowned IBF champion, if I recall. And what do we got here? Oh, I'm not going to do that. That's an instant rematch. Let's see here. Oh, God. I think this fight, could cause a spike in the rate of suicide in boxing fans. This fight could see the loss of advertisers. This fight could see people swear off the sport of boxing. What I have pulled out of my stack is Richardson Hitchens against Devin Haney. Dez, thoughts?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought you were going to say Jack Catterall. Right, Devin Haney. It's a strange one, this, because this is so typical of the wave boxing has. And there was a time not so long ago, I thought Devin Haney was the next big thing, the next elite fighter that we all put up that top 1, top 2 pound for pound list. And the way Ryan Garcia got a hold of him, the way Ryan Garcia knocked him about, how vulnerable he looked, how his face when he was on the floor and he got up and didn't quite know how to get back at Ryan, what that's done to him, the mental side of it, I'm not sure. And I'm really big on Richardson Hitchens. I think Richardson Hitchens is one of them kids that's just gone round the long way. He's been off camera, he's been off TV, He's worked really, really hard. He comes from a really good city. He comes from a really good part of New York where boxing, the fundamentals of boxing, and if you get a good one from Brooklyn, they're normally a good one. I think Richardson Hitchens, I know this is hypothetical. I'm not saying he's a better fighter than Devin Haney, but Richardson Hitchens is all wrong for Devin Haney anytime in the next 6 months. Devin needs to build up a bit of momentum. He needs to get a couple of confidence wins under his belt, and he needs to start being Devin Haney that we knew about probably 18 months ago. Right now, I wouldn't fancy Devin Haney against Richardson Hitchens. I think Richardson's too big at the weight. He's too disciplined. He's got a brilliant jab. I think he knows how to get through rounds, take you into that latter stage. Oh, God, I think he'd be a nightmare for Devin Haney. But I'm not saying he's a better fighter than Devin. I just think he's the wrong type of opponent. I think Devin Haney would avoid him like the plague.
Which makes me happy because obviously I didn't give a shining endorsement for the prospect of this fight. Let's see here. What else do we got here? I've got, interesting one there. Jose Valenzuela against Liam Perro. Justin.
Liam Perro versus Jose Valenzuela.
As you remember, Valenzuela picked up his title beating Isaac Cruz. And then
he did.
Defended it against one of the freaking Russell brothers.
Yeah, I wouldn't say Perro got found out, but he looked really one-dimensional his last fight versus Hitchens. And I'm with Dez on Hitchens. I know he's boring. I know, but I like it. Because sometimes you just have to appreciate the guy who just knows the boxing. I guess that's the best way to put it. He just knows the game. He knows how to throw the shots properly. The skill. Sometimes you just have to appreciate it. Yeah, he's not going to light up the world, but hell, not everybody can light up the world. And not every fighter can be a Manny Pacquiao type. And that's just not the world. But if I had to guess, Paro, we don't really know much about Paro. We just know he beat Matias, who, come to find out, is pretty.
He took care of Montana Love, and we had a fair bit of data on Love.
I don't give a lot of credit to Montana Love.
I think that Matias is he's just Perro is just a good B fighter. He's a B level fighter who found the right guy.
Exactly. That's why I'm leaning Valenzuela. I think Paro. I don't think you can't say Paro pulled a Cambosis, but sort of like that. Like you said, and that's all it takes in boxing. Just catch the guy, the right guy, and then your career's set for life. That's all it takes. Paro is going to get fights. Now look, he's getting the Valenzuela fight. He just got beat, and he's getting another. He got that fight. But I would say Valenzuela would beat Paro if I had to put money on it. I just think Paro he just looked like he had no answers. And yes, Hitchens again is a hard guy, but still, I just like Valenzuela because I thought Cruz was a decent fighter, and Valenzuela just took him apart. So I think he would beat Paro.
Yeah, and
Valenzuela. He's an interesting fighter. He knows how to use that jab. I'm sorry, and I was thinking of a different guy who beat Russell. But he had a good run here. I don't know if you remember his fight in 2022 with Edwin De Los Santos, but it was like a 3-round shootout where both guys were down. There was a point deduction, and it just one of those ones where he ended up on the wrong side. And then after that was the first fight with Chris Colbert, which I thought that he won. I think 90% of boxing fans thought he won.
He won.
The rematch was more conclusive than the win over Isaac Cruz. So he's shown that he can beat come forward fighters, and he can beat boxers, and but he did end up on the wrong side of a shootout, which is why I think this is interesting. Perro isn't afraid to shoot out with you, and that's definitely more of what he would be looking for than what he ran into with Hitchens. So I don't know. Yeah, I like that.
Colbert reminds me of I don't know if people remember this guy. You remember Francisco Pachito Bajado? Does anybody remember?
You don't really, I don't think.
Yeah, he was. I don't know if anybody remembers him. Yeah, his Francisco Pachito Bajada. That was his name. Colbert reminds me of him of a guy that, Colbert was one of those guys like can't miss kind of guy. Like he was just getting pushed really hard and then got found out. Those are the guys that. So every time I think about something, I always think of Bajada. Yeah, he was one of the guys that ESPN had like the Tuesday night fights, like the Wednesday night fights, all those different days.
Yeah,
he was one of those guys that was a star of those with Teddy Atlas and all them.
Tuesday night fights was on USA. Wednesday night fights was on ESPN.
Yeah, I love the summer because during the summer, ESPN had at least 3 cards a week all summer long. And that was like 20 years ago, but that was the good days.
Yeah, the good days. I remember them well. I reminisce often. And I got one more. And funny enough, Des, this fight seemed like it was agreed to. Now it seems like they can't figure it out. It's up in the air. But if it does get off the ground, I pulled it out of the pile. I got Teofimo Lopez against Subriel Matias. My hunch on this one, Des, has always been that Matias is finally the kind of opponent that Teo needs, who wants to come at him and would probably give his best attributes. But also, Matias has a good motor. He went the distance even in losing with Pero, and he was getting touched up.
I don't know why we don't make that fight. That's a brilliant fight. That's got my mouth watering. You'd bring Matias over for the press conferences in New York. You'd bring out the Latino community. Remind me of where I know Teo is an American citizen, but where's his father from?
I think it's Honduras.
Yes, right. So he's Honduras.
Yeah, so Matias, Puerto Rican.
So it's a brilliant mix of Latinos in New York. You could have that at the Barclays. You could do lunchtime training sessions. You could open a gym. It could be almost Duran-esque, where you've got 400 or 500 people with their camera phones taking pictures of both the guys training. It'd be a brilliant build-up. I think Teo beats Matias, but Matias would come to fight. It's a brilliant fight, and if for the good of boxing, they should make that.
Yeah, and I hope that they do come to terms on it because it's the right go. I think the hang-up was that Teo wants it to be on pay-per-view and Bob doesn't think it would sell enough. I think it's a fight where you'd actually make most of your money on the gate. It would just do so well at Madison Square Garden. You go for the big room and just wing it.
Did you ever hear them stories when Duran used to train in New York and people used to get out of work or on their lunch break and used to get into the gym? It might have been Gleason's, and the place was packed and you couldn't move, and everybody would be watching Duran train. Have you ever seen that sort of footage?
A little bit here and there.
Yeah, Duran went down really well wherever he went, but in New York he really went down well. And I think
he had the right attitude for New York. He's
did.
kind of got that machismo, right?
Correct. And I think Teo's got a little bit of that, and the way Matias fights has got that. And I just think that would be a brilliant fight in New York.
Yeah, hopefully it happens. I'm pulling for it, but we'll see. Let's see. The only fight at 147 that I thought I really would like to see this before either guy evacuates their belts in the weight is going to be Jaron Ennis against Amon Stanionis, Justin.
Well, I think Ennis has lost a little bit of his hype the last couple of fights. But God, that would be a good fight because you have Stanionis he's going to come forward.
And he's Ennis jab the fuck out.
Yeah, God, that would be a great fight. I like Stanionis better, so I would root for Stanionis to win. But if Ennis is who we thought he was, he should edge a close fight versus Stanionis. But like you said, Stanionis has an incredible jab. He has a great motor. I could see Stanionis, you compare him to the guys. Look at the last guy that Ennis fought, the last 2 fights. He does a lot of things Stanionis tries to do, and he was having some success. Well, Stanionis is 10 times better than him, so you kind of got to factor that in. I think Stanionis wins. I just think that Ennis is maybe not what we thought he was. Not saying that he's not good, but he might not be what we thought he was.
Well, and I'd argue that Butayev is a better win than anything that Ennis.
Yes, and Butayev, because Butayev, think about it, Butayev would crush the guy that gave Ennis problems, in my opinion.
Oh, I think if you made Butayev against Sarkisian,
He would kill him.
tomorrow, yeah, I think Butayev would beat the shit out of that guy.
And I think Stanionis would jab him and just knock him out. So it's like Ennis is going to have to go somewhere that he's never been. Is he ready for that? I don't know. That is a fight that I hope Stanionis wins. I just like Stanionis. I like his little shaved head. I like his jab. I like his whole attitude. He seems like a really nice guy. I think Stanionis gets him. I don't think it's going to be a knockout, but I think he edges him. In my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's a really close fight, and it would probably be close to a 50-50 fight with the books, and it would probably play out that way in the ring. I think the draw would definitely be something that's in play there because both guys have shown a good chin. I'm not sure that either one could knock the other one down. Des, you have any thoughts on that fight before we move to 154?
I think it's really hard to perhaps look past Gerard Ennis purely because he hasn't. Look, Mayweather had the Corrales win, and Bud had Gamboa as a win, and Beterbiev had Gavodnich. Tyson Fury had Vlad. We look back on people's careers and go, we can bank on that person to show up because they beat that person, and we haven't got that from Boots yet. And we just want something to say, prove how good you are, and we haven't got that. I still think Boots would show up, and I think he'd nick that fight. I think the better the opponent, the better Boots you'd get. But I think they've just kept him for whatever reason. Maybe it's because of the movement at 147 and at 54, because Bud is in a transitional phase. I just think Boots has been kept lukewarm for too long, and we need to hot him up a bit. It's certainly a really good fight. I'm going to go with the edge that Boots would really show up and have too much for Stanionis. But where that fight was made, I'm assuming it'd be in America. I think that's a big part of it too. If it was over in Saudi, that might have a little bit of an effect on my thinking. But I just inclined to think that Boots is going to have to show up soon, and that sort of fight would be where Boots showed up.
Yeah, and that's got Vegas written all over it. I just feel like for some reason, just a typical PBC Vegas card. So, but there you go. I think it's 50-50 fight. We were 50-50 with the guys there. So, and let's see here. What do we got next? I got 154, and I got some names here. Interesting. I got Charles Conwell. Oh, this is an interesting one. This is an interesting one for you, and you'll get to do double time on this one too, Des. So we got the upcoming fight between Israel Madrimov and Virgil Ortiz so the winner of that against Charles Conwell. So first, how do you think Madrimov against Ortiz goes? And Justin, I'll let you get your take on that one too, because that's another kind of mouth-watering fight in my opinion.
It's a really hard fight. Yeah, it's a brilliant fight. Mouthful is what you said, isn't it? Ortiz and Madrimov. I really liked Madrimov against Bud. I thought Madrimov gave Bud so much to think about, and you can
who else has picked off 5 or 4 or 5 rounds off of Crawford?
Crawford, no one. And who had Bud thinking as much as what Madrimov did, and who had Bud being really risk adverse and almost reactive for large spells of a fight. I mean, when you compare the way Bud dealt with Spence, and then it was a complete 180 the way he had to fight Madrimov. It shows you how good Madrimov is. So I'm gauging Madrimov by the way Terence had to fight against him, and maybe that's the wrong way but it tells me a lot because I know how good Bud is. I think Madrimov's a really good fighter. He's got really good movement with his feet. He's economical. He's very subtle, and he puts you in little spaces. And anyone but Terence Crawford at 54 that night probably don't get nowhere near beating Madrimov. But Bud's a special fighter. I'm not quite sure Ortiz is a special fighter. He's very good. I think Ortiz is hittable, but he can hit you too. It's a brilliant fight. I'm not going to sit on the fence. From where I am now, we've not pulled this one apart, and we will do when it comes and when we get close to it. But where we are now, I think Madrimov will be too economical, know how to shut you down, put you in corners. I think he'll give nothing away, and I think he'll find holes in Ortiz. So I think Madrimov just beats Ortiz, but it'd be a really good fight.
See, and I think the key word that you said there, Des, is economical. And you know, he's a guy that feints a lot and things like that. But being economical is probably what cost him a chance at beating Crawford, and it might be what cost him a chance at beating Ortiz. But Justin Ortiz went down a couple of times in his last fight. He showed some vulnerabilities in there, and Madrimov is not a huge puncher, but he is pretty clever with the angles and he finds the spots.
It's funny because we just mentioned Ennis, but you remember how high everybody was on Virgil Ortiz as of what, 2 years ago?
Oh yeah,
we thought he was unstoppable, that he was going to give Crawford that fight, that he was going to.
Jonas was the fight, man.
And it's kind of like he can't, well, whatever reason why, you know, he can't make weight. He doesn't fight that often. You know, his last fight was the Kavaliauskas fight, wasn't it? I can't remember which his last fight was.
No,
which one did he get knocked down twice?
Buhachek, he fought.
Buhachek, yeah, Buhachek. Yeah. That's what I thought. I mean, Buhachek's good. It's not like he got knocked down by just some random guy that showed up. Madrimov, God, I don't want to be like Dez. I don't want to be on the fence. There's something in me that as soon as you said the fight, as soon as I heard it, I just think Virgil Ortiz for me. And the reason I think that is I've been wrong in the past. Just because you give somebody like Crawford a good fight, you know, just there's different styles. I like Madrimov. I don't think he's special. I don't think he does something credible. I think Ortiz is still good enough where you have to have a little bit more about you to beat him. I don't know if Madrimov has that. Yeah, he took rounds off.
Can I ask you a question, Justin? Can I ask you a question? You said something there. I don't think he's that special, and that's true. You'd look at Madrimov and think, what's so special about Madrimov? But for me, it was the way he put Terence in a shell. Like that, I loved every minute of that fight because
I agree. Yeah, you're right. He has ability, but I mean something like I can't explain it. Maybe it's just me. When you watch when you watch boxing so long, you kind of know what I'm saying. Like you see it.
He lacks the X factor, Justin.
Yeah,
you got to worry about guys like that. Is oftentimes they are more than the sum of their parts.
Yeah, and Crawford doesn't fight at all. So you don't really know what state of mind Crawford was in, and you got to think about it. It's not like Crawford's a young guy. It's not like he's just some. So I just think if Ortiz is anything what we thought he was, he'll beat Madrimov. And if you have to say this, if he, especially the Buhachek fight, if he does lose to Madrimov, where does Ortiz go? I mean, where does he go after that? Because if he went to war with Buhachek, who's decent, but not, you know, the top guy. Then if he loses to Madrimov, he's kind of like just floating. I don't know where he kind of settles, but I don't know. As soon as you said it, that's the first thing that crossed my mind. I'm going to go with first thing I thought was Ortiz close. That's just what I thought. I like Madrimov. I think he's a good fighter, but I still think Ortiz is good enough where you got to be a little bit better than good to beat him. And maybe I'm wrong. I still like Virgil Ortiz. I just think he's going to do it.
All right. I like that. That was a good little discussion on that one. So Des, there's a part B to that. The winner of that fight against Charles Conwell, who's a really underrated guy who's kind of coming up under the radar, just waiting for his chance. I don't know how much of Charles you've had a chance to see.
Yeah, I've seen a little bit of Charles. I'm not over familiar with him, but I'm aware of him. Charles, and I watched him box his last one out. He's not going to have enough for a Madrimov or an Ortiz. So unfortunately, your picks have thrown him in at the deep end. So Conwell doesn't have enough at this stage for a Madrimov or an Ortiz. And you know what I think of Madrimov, and I'm high on Ortiz as well. I think them two guys are a level above Conwell at the moment. But he's a very good prospect, and he's coming through the top 10 ranks.
You know, what's interesting about Conwell at this point in time is that he hasn't fought often enough. He had no fights in 2023, but he got 3 in 24. But at this point in his career, he has taken 4 different fighters. Wendy Toussaint, Matias Ashkaev, Juan Carlos Rubio, and Gerardo Luis Vergara in his last fight. So that's it's there might be something to the kid, and we'll see. And I agree with your initial feeling on that one. But what you kind of wonder is like a guy with like Conwell, where you see there's a lot to him, but like I don't know if he has that X factor. The question is always does the moment, the quality of opposition bring out the X factor in them?
I saw Conwell on the Haney and Garcia undercard, I think it was. So it might not have been his last one. It might have been a couple behind
that was against Nathaniel Gallimore in April. He fought twice since then. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So I see him on that one, and so that's fair enough. So we're 3 fights behind. So I'm not saying he's not a good fighter, but I'm really big on Madrimov. Like Madrimov fought Bud Crawford as a 10-0 fighter and made probably the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world go into a shell and be very, very reactive. This is the same guy that jumped on Sean Porter and jumped on Errol Spence. So, and Ortiz, like Justin mentioned, Ortiz and Madrimov, there's not a lot of daylight between them two because we're all high on Ortiz as well. So I just think Conwell's not in that conversation. So if whoever he gets out of them two, I don't think Conwell's ready for them yet. But you're right, he has come up a good way, but they have picked the proper the right undefeated fighters for him now.
I think style wise, Madrimov would have a better chance for Ortiz than he would Madrimov. And I don't know, I just Conwell because of just the styles match up. Because
you might be right.
Yeah, because Conwell would be more like the Crawford type style, and you know what Madrimov did versus that. So I would think Madrimov Conwell would do better versus Ortiz than he would Madrimov.
Yeah, I think you're right there, possibly. Let's see. Join us, Mr. Rob Kelly. Rob, right now I'm drawing names from a hat and making fictional matches at weight classes that you never know with the.
Hold on, let me jump off again. Fuck's sake.
With Turkey Ellis Shake being part of the boxing community.
Oh, yeah.
Now you never know what's on the table. So away to the hat I go again. To which I pull.
And listen, play your cards right. We'll be all out in Saudi Arabia doing this ourselves in the flesh because every fucker in boxing was over there for the Ring Magazine Awards. So maybe we'll be over there next year nominated for best boxing podcast. Yeah, stranger things have happened in the dark. You know that way?
Right. Stranger things have definitely happened. I have been alive the last 10 years, so I agree 100%. Let's see here. So right now I have for you, let's see here. I just pulled that one. That isn't going to work. Oh, this is a good one to get you in here. So this is another 2-parter. So some of these, Rob, I got fights that are already on the schedule or look like they're being made. And those 2 fighters against someone else. So your part A of this one is the potential upcoming fight in looks like March between Sebastian Fundora and Errol Spence. Rob.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know. Fucking like, I honestly think Crawford nearly killed Spence in the last fight. I think he beat the fucking shit out of him, regardless of whether it was a diminished version of Spence or whether Spence had the best camp possible or there was something wrong between Spence and what's his trainer? What was his trainer again?
Derek James.
Derek James, yeah. There's some friction there between the two of them, or the preparation wasn't good. But either way, Errol Spence at welterweight was there for the taking by Bud Crawford, and he actually gave him probably a worse beating than I thought he was going to. I thought he was going to beat him emphatically, but I didn't think it was going to be that bad of a beating. And his face and everything didn't look the same. So I honestly can't see. It's nearly 2 years on since that fight now, isn't it? Almost, isn't it?
It's going to be 18 months if they get in the ring in March. I think it's 18 months.
18 months on. Spence hasn't been active. He's up at a new weight. We don't know if he belongs there. We always thought he was a bit of a weight bully at 47, but don't know if he belongs there. I think if he was going to go to 54, he should have probably gone before the Bud Crawford fight. I think he was managed or advised badly along the way, even though it looked like it was a master plan at one stage. I just don't know how much that beating has taken out of him, and if he'll ever be the same again with the accident and the operations and the fact that he likes to fucking smoke a bit of weed as well and have a few drinks. Which is fine, but not the best if you're fucking. It's fine for some people, but just don't be fucking going for unified titles in elite boxing. You know that way. It's not fucking knocking anybody's hustle or whatever, but fucking, I don't think it's the ideal preparation for elite sports. So, I think Fundora showed a different aspect of a different kind of. He gave us a different look against Zoo, one that we didn't think he had, which is the one that I always used to fucking get mad about watching Fundora. And listeners to the pod will know that I used to
You
crack
have
up
a
watching this guy.
foot-long reach advantage on these motherfuckers. Throw a jab, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, he wants to fight on the inside. He's 6'7", fucking 6'7", fucking welterweight. Wants to fucking fight on the inside. Unbelievable, like middleweight or whatever the fuck he is. So I think if Fundora is, I think Fundora is hard to get to for anyone at that weight class when he actually boxes the way he should box. But having said that, we've seen him be vulnerable as well. He's a big fucking long streak of misery, isn't he? I'd edge Fundora at this stage in this fight. I think Fundora's on the up. I think he learned a lot from his loss. I think he stepped right into the fucking firing line with Tim Tszyu, exposed him. If you want to, I hate that term exposed, but fucking showed him up a little bit. A lot of people thought Tszyu was going to fucking walk through Fundora. It just wasn't the case. And I think if he gets on a jab with our Spence and starts to accumulate a bit of damage to that face, I'd edge Fundora at this stage. Yeah, I never thought I'd end up fucking saying that in a if I was pitched a match between these two, but I just don't know what's left of Spence, man. I think a fight like that takes so much out of you, and we've seen that in recent fights too. We've seen that with guys who've been out recently where they've had epic encounters before that and they haven't been the same. It's an age-old tale in boxing, and some guys are not the same. And I just can't. I think with everything, all the contributing factors when it comes to Errol Spence, I think they're all going to play a part, and I think Fundora, that will probably be the end of him.
Well, and he just got ate up by a fellow southpaw when Crawford fought out of that stance. It's just there's a lot lining up against him, you know.
It was just he looked on that night as well like he didn't have an answer, like he couldn't make an adjustment to what the things that Crawford was doing, and then he was just getting broken down so badly, and his balance was gone. It looked like he had a bust eardrum or something as well. He really got a fucking hiding that night, and we have to fucking remember as well, Errol Spence has made a ton of cash. He made a ton of money fighting opposition that wasn't on his level. What hunger for does he have to even have another fight? I think this is a bit more about pride and dented ego and going out on his terms. I could be completely wrong. We might see a rejuvenated version of Errol Spence at 54, but in boxing, like you very rarely get better as you get older. You very rarely get faster and quicker as you get older. And after fights that have taken something out of you, those remnants are definitely left there and are on display going forward. So yeah, like I said, I think Fundora has. I don't think it'll be an easy night's work, but I think Fundora will be a clear winner in that fight.
I think you might be on mute, mate.
Oh, sorry about that. So, and sorry, part B of that question, unfortunately, and we live in a modern world today, so it's possible for somebody to have two dads. So, what would you think in that fight of Sebastian Fundora against Bakram Murtazaliev, who was the other one I drew?
Murtazaliev probably has a little bit more.
Well, that left hook he hit Tszyu with, I mean, he fucking sent him to next Tuesday.
That guy
is such a sucker for it.
Murtazaliev, the real one. You
got to keep. Yeah, you got to if that's ever like to keep a guy on the outside, you got to keep him. I don't know what Fundora could do with him to stop him getting inside on him. I think he has that shuffle of the feet as well, that kind of Eastern European way of getting in distance. Like, and I think he'd fucking be a nightmare for Fundora. It's actually, there you go. Styles make fights done. I actually see Fundora having a really tough one, and the punch power being the difference. I'd say Murtazaliev knocks him out.
Yeah, he's got such a good left hook, and we will never be able to. We'll never forget about that left hook that ended at Fundora there. Why can't I remember who landed it right now though?
Brian Mendoza.
Yeah, Mendoza. Yep, who Zoo beat quite cleanly.
But it was a brilliant left hook, and it was everything Rob just said. It was a little movement of his left foot. He just stepped an inch one side, and as his toe landed, he threw that left hook, and it was a brilliant left hook. And that's what tells me that Murtazaliev, who is, I'm promising you, is an absolute beast of a fighter. That's a real one. And if he gets inside of Fundora, which he will, he just opens up on him, and Fundora can't answer them type of shots on the inside. So Murtazaliev,
that's the fight, isn't it, for them two? Are they fighting, Madrimov and Murtazaliev? That's the fucking fight I want to see.
we just done Madrimov has got Ortiz, Rob. That's a good.
Oh
fight.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, good fight.
Murtazaliev, we all said. Murtazaliev is a real good fighter, and this is going to be his coming out year. Rob said something about Spence. It's so true. He's had 2 years in activity. If he comes back, it'll probably be of a new trainer. What's his weight going to be like? He took an absolute hiding. Like, it was the perfect storm because Bomac and Bud was absolutely on it, and Spence and James were off it, and they made him pay. And it dropped him early, beat him up, stopped him. I'm not quite sure. Similar to what the Devon Haney argument, what type of version are we ever going to see them again after a fight like that, and inactivity and everything that comes with it? So I think with Spence, it's all about what type of Spence are we going to be left with, and you've got to throw into that the lifestyle, the car crashes. It's such a cocktail for it not going right for him.
Yeah, a lot of things can go wrong here, but it's 154 is just such a great division. It's definitely one of the reasons I pulled it as one of the divisions picked names from. And Justin, I just wanted to do this one as I'm just looking at the names on here, just putting it together, and I think this is a fun one for you. What would you think about Bahuchik against Murtazaliev?
It'd be great for as long as it lasted. But I think that fight was one of those you're looking at probably 4 to 7 good rounds. And then and I think Murtazaliev would stop him because Bahuchik, they both are going to go right at each other. There's no boxing going to happen in that. That's just going to be right at you. And I think Murtazaliev stops him. And I wouldn't be surprised if Bahuchik stopped him because, he put Ortiz down a couple of times. But I think Murtazaliev would catch him like 5th or 6th round. But that'd be a great fight. That's one of those like fight of the year type things because as long as it would go. So, yeah, that would definitely be a awesome fight. But Murtazaliev, that's the kind of stuff he needs to be in. Just keep putting him in versus guys like that. We want to see him knock people out. I want to see him because, like, you put him in versus Spence, I think you can guarantee a knockout. I don't think Spence could handle that at this time of his career. Fundora, like you said, Fundora would get knocked out because he just is not going to use his jab. Murtazaliev wouldn't let that happen. But, yeah, Bahuchik Murtazaliev would be an awesome fight. God, that would be one of those. Like I said, long as it lasted, and I think Murtazaliev would get him.
Somebody asked me to be in their wedding party, and I looked at the schedule. I was on that night, be like, "Sorry, dude, I'm watching some boxing." Let's see. So that was 154. At 160, there's only a handful of fights that I think are really worth catching whatsoever. Obviously, we have Hamza Shiraz against Carlos Adames, which I think is a good fight. But Des, as far as his handlers go, Shiraz avoided picking the chance at 2 belts against Ali Mahanallah over the single belt against Adames, and I think even though it's a fairly close fight with the books, I think if you trust the people who are guiding his career, you're certainly going to have to go with Hamza Shiraz in this upcoming fight.
Sorry, Matty, I just missed you a little bit there, mate. Are we talking who would you pick out for Hamza Shiraz?
And Carlos Adames.
No, absolutely.
Very few fights at 160 that are worth making,
Yeah, no, Hamza's too big, too efficient, too good of his jab, and he can punch a bit as well. So, and I think Adames is probably is a bit too predictable, too short, and it styles to make fights with that one. No, Hamza Shiraz does a number on Adames, I think.
Yeah, he's a lanky fighter, and the only thing that I think if I was a big fan of Shiraz that would give me pause would be that Adames is known to throw some punches from odd angles where you're not typically looking for his hands to be coming from.
Yeah, no, look, I think I watched the Adames. Was it in that tournament? When did he box Gusha? Was it in that tournament they just boxed in?
I don't think it was a tournament.
Oh, the big box Gusha and before
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
Julian
yeah.
Williams. Yeah, I've liked a lot about Adames, but I think Hamza's the kid on the way up. He's young. He's got size. He's height. He's got a really good jab. He's very efficient with that jab, and he can punch as well. And I just think you have to be a little bit better or offer a little bit more than what Carlos Adames does if he's gonna beat a kid like Hamza who's got so many tools. Hamza's beatable, but I don't think Carlos Adames has got the tools to do it.
Yeah, I think his reign will probably be over in that fight. But Rob, so if that comes off, and you got a chance to have 3 belts there, what do you think of a fight between Hamza Shiraz and Alim Hanallah?
I don't know. I'd have to have a look at it closer to the time. I think Shiraz has done everything right on the road to silverware, but there's something missing there for me. I don't know if looks like he's hiding class or they matched him well. Like he's done what he's supposed to do with all of the opponents that have been put in front of him so far. He looks classy. He looks like he can punch. Technique wise, he looks brilliant. But I don't know if it's like glass to the body or he's hiding glass to the chin. I don't know if they've necessarily matched him. I don't know if they matched him in the old-fashioned way where you fucking let it have a few guineas and then you actually, you make the opposition tougher as you go up. I think he's maybe that it's just the talent pool in that particular division is not what it used to be. That's one aspect of it, but he hasn't had those kind of fights where he's had to come through anything. Now, is he that good? Maybe he could be that good. The eye test is not saying that completely for me. I think he looks like a classy fighter, like I said. But for me, there could be something missing still. I'm not saying that there is, but there could be. So I'd actually, I think I'd back just with the experience. I go the other way, like on that one.
Yeah,
I can't pronounce that kid's name that well, so but I'm not trying to say it. So yeah, but I think I'd go the other way on that one.
There's a big difference between Tyler Demi, Amo Williams, Liam Williams, and stepping up to Johnny Beck. There's a big difference. I think Johnny Beck would have. Yeah, that's a hard fight.
And the thing is, I still think there's an argument that Amo Williams might be a better fighter than Carlos Adames, personally.
There is that argument. That's correct.
Yep.
Like it's Adames has kind of been feasting on has-beens on his way to the title, and God love him, he pulled a few unexpected W's out over time, but I don't know for how much longer this can last. I feel like it's coming to an end, but we'll see. But I think it just goes to speak of the weakness of the 160-pound division, Justin. That it's
never been worse, I don't think, too.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you can fight Carlos Adames and then Janibek and Alim Hanallah and end up with 3 out of the 4 belts, that's kind of weird.
I'm sorry, repeat your question.
I said the 160 is a really weak division when you can fight Alim Hanallah and Carlos Adames and wind up with 3 belts.
No, it sucks. But wait, so it's a damn shame because this is always usually the good division. Like one of the
key divisions.
Yeah, always. But no, this sucks. Like I said, I would go with Ana Halala right now to beat Shiraz. I'm like Rob. There's something there with Shiraz. I would go with Ana Halala, but you're right. Adames wouldn't even be top 10 in any of those good middleweight years. He would be right at like maybe 9 or 10, maybe. But now he holds a belt. Ana Halala, who knows? We haven't seen him fight anybody good because there's nobody good for him to fight. So it's not his fault, but we don't know what he is because it's so bad. You don't know. You don't know what he could really do because you can't be tested.
His toughest night was against Denzel Bentley.
There's nobody to test him. So I guess, Shiraz, if you're going to win a title in middleweight and you're not an elite fighter, you might as well do it now, because this is the time to win you an easy belt when it's just not that good. So yeah, it's a shame. It'll come back. Every division comes back. It seems like heavyweight's been kind of never come back, but every division eventually comes back. So middleweight will get there again, maybe, but yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, well, we'll get to heavyweight in a second. I think heavyweight's kind of underrated division in a way, but let's see here, 168 pounds. Outside of the Canelo stuff, and it sounds like they're really trying to make Crawford against Canelo. We'll see if that happens. A couple of fights that I kind of like that I think are not entirely impossible, especially if you look at the top rank joining over at with the Zone, is I'd kind of like to see Edgar Berlanga against Christian Ambili. Either a Caleb Plant. I think that those would probably be entertaining fights, at least, Rob. Rob, have you disappeared?
Sorry, dude, on mute there. What was the question again? Sorry, I wasn't listening to you, but I wasn't listening to you.
I said at 168 pounds. The only
68.
outside of Canelo, the only like combinations of fighters I find kind of interesting is some fight between Caleb Plant, Christian Ambili, and Edgar Berlanga.
Yeah, Plant. Yeah. I like the Plant and Berlanga fight.
They're both just mouthy sons of bitches. Yeah, the build-up would be fantastic.
And there's a bit of back and forth between Berlanga and Caleb Plant already, isn't it? There's a bit of that going on. So yeah, so I'd like to see that fight, definitely. Caleb Plant, decent fighter. Had his moment. I don't think he's ever going to I think he had his moment, and he. I want to say overachieved, because he was plenty good, like a very, very good technical fighter. Didn't really have much hands or have much pop in his hands. But good combination puncher, a nice slick fighter, able to fight on the back foot, go back to the ropes, beat some guys we didn't expect him to beat along the way. Lost against two fucking top guys, so not really against him. But I think a fight against Berlanga would definitely put him on the map. And Berlanga is deluded and moronic, isn't he, with his outlook on things? Like he was the one that came out of the loss to Canelo and said that he knows what he has, what it takes to be the face of boxing. The face of boxing, Edgar Berlanga. So he's just deluded and mental, isn't he? Like, so that'll be a good trash talk, good hype up. Probably get a bit of a fucking push and a pull at the way in there on that one. And I'd say Caleb Plant has enough to beat Berlanga. But Berlanga has a punch, so it'd be an interesting fight. But I think skill wise, Caleb Plant's always involved in some drama as well. Didn't he fucking slap one of the fucking Charlos as well? He's a bit of a headbanger, isn't he? So I'd expect a press conference brawl there, a la Derek Chisora. But yeah, he's a good fighter. Caleb Plant. I like him. I'm not mad on Berlanga. I think he's got sandbags in his feet, and he just hasn't got it once he goes up the level. So I don't know if necessarily know if Berlanga be in a rush for that one. Like, but we'll see.
Yeah. And at 175, Des, what are some domestic fights that you would like to see happen at 175 this year? Des, did you also quit paying attention?
No, mate. No, I'm here. I'm here for you. So for the first time in my life, middle and super middle ain't got nothing going on at the moment. So there's a lot of action down at 54, and there's an awful lot of action up at 75. I think light heavy is a brilliant division at the moment, probably more domestically than internationally. But our domestic fighters, you could argue they're international fighters now. So, of course, we've got Beterbiev and Bivol, haven't we? Sometime the next 3. Is that in February or in March?
The 22nd of February.
Yeah, so we've got Beterbiev and Bivol to sort that out. Then perhaps Beterbiev could fight Opetaia if he comes through that. If he doesn't win that, we might have a rubber stamp between Beterbiev and Bivol. Let's see how that one goes. We've got Benavidez and Morel. That's coming around 1st of February, Matty?
Yeah, I think first or
somewhere
second,
like that. Yeah, somewhere like that. I'm actually hot on the group we've got in this country, which is Yard and Buatsi and Lyndon Arthur and Callum Smith and Willie Hutchinson. I'd like to get Spider Richards. I don't leave none of them out. I'd like to get all that group, and I'd say, look, we can provide. I mean, on the back of what I saw last night on Sky, why are promoters not sitting around the table and getting all these light heavies working? Because we've got about 12 to 18 months of really good boxing between these guys. I'm looking forward to Benavidez and Morale. I think that's a brilliant fight. Perhaps the winner of Benavidez and Morale could fight the winner of Bivol and Beterbiev, and the two losers could fight off. I'm not quite sure how long Beterbiev is going to stick around at light heavy. But it's a good division. It's probably the best the light heavyweight division been for a very long time. It's got some standout stars in Beterbiev and Bivol, and some standout coming through stars in Morale and Benavidez. Wouldn't it be amazing, just amazing, if Canelo jumped up one and met Benavidez, or Benavidez and Canelo met at some sort of catch? That would be nice. But I think it's a good division. There's loads to be excited about the light heavies. I don't think light heavy's got anything to worry about. I think it's a really stacked division at the moment.
Yeah, you have what is that, Buatsi and Callum Smith coming up on the February 22nd card, I believe. So we're getting a little bit of that action going on there. I actually think that Buatsi is, I think Smith is just done at this point in time. I feel like he's there for a paycheck almost and nothing more, but we'll see.
Wouldn't it be nice if we got Anthony Yard into that mix to fight the winner? And if Anthony Yard if Anthony Yard's good enough to do that, perhaps we can get Willie Hutchinson busy as well, and Lyndon Arthur and Spider. We've got some really good light heavies in this country, and I go back to it. I don't want to labour the point. If last night's an example of what British boxing can put on for us, we want to tap into this talent we've got, because they're exciting and they're all television friendly fights. We should be getting these guys working.
Yeah, absolutely. It's at the very least, it's kind of like at the cruiserweight division. I think even though Opetaia has basically steamrolled most of the fighters you got over there, there's still a great domestic scene to be had there. But Robbie, since you didn't have a chance to talk about it earlier, obviously earlier this week we saw Jai Opetaia get a big knockout victory down under. But one of the only interesting fights really at cruiserweight is him against Zurdo Ramirez. Can you give us your thoughts on that fight that they're looking to make for May?
I think Zurdo's made for him. I think he's too good, isn't he, Opetaia? I think he'd be too precise, punches too hard. I think Zurdo's there to be hit. Zurdo, I have no idea what he's doing up on cruiserweight. I think he's a blown up cruiserweight. I thought he looked fat at the weight the last time. And I think Opetaia is a unit. I think he punch holes in him, actually. I think it'll be a destructive performance from Opetaia. Straight shots, power, he's fast, he's long, rangy. I just think he has it all probably at cruiserweight, and I think he fucking do a job on Zurdo. Ramirez is tough. Like he's tough. He's a tough guy. He's a bit of a. He kind of avoided the talent pool, didn't he, at 68 when he was down there, and he's up now at cruiserweight. Like I don't know if he's a. I think they maneuvered him to a world title, that way. But he's all right. I would say he's had an underwhelming presence in the sport for the last 10 years or so. And I think Opetaia is on the up, so I just think he smashes him up.
Yeah, that's my initial hunch, but Ramirez held a shot against William Smith really well. It's just he wasn't able to put him away, and I don't know if you can pitter patter around Opetaia for that long. Actually, I shouldn't say that because he landed someone looked to be heavy shots on CBS. He just ate him up, but it's that fight's happening in May. Hopefully, nothing gets in the way of that. It is boxing, God only knows. But let's see real quick. I also want to check on heavyweight. Let's see if there's something I'm missing at heavyweight. I probably could have put some cut some names out from that one as well. But let's see here. Oops. Sorry, folks. Let's Yeah, let's see. Outside of obviously, let's stay away from some of the guys at the top. What's interesting. I'll tell you what, actually, guys. What's interesting is when you look at these rankings that ESPN has on heavyweight. Most of these guys have fought each other to some extent or another, or they're preparing to fight one another. I gotta give a hand to Turkey Al Sheikh on this one because currently the ESPN heavyweight boxing rankings go in descending order. Usyk, Fury, Dubois, Parker, Joshua Zhang, Vicoli, Caballel, Miller, and Andy Ruiz Jr. And most of those guys, I mean, to fight each other, like I said, or they're preparing to fight each other. It's a very interesting division where they're just kind of getting stuff done, more or less. Justin, do you have anything on your heavyweight boxing wish list for this year?
I think just keep doing what they're doing. Like you just said, they're kind of all just fighting each other slowly, but they are fighting each other. And you can't say that about every division. Because I think we said, Dubois fighting Parker. So that's a fight we don't mind seeing. I don't really care if we see Joshua fight again, even though he'll probably end up fighting Fury I still believe that fight will happen. One way or another, they will fight each other.
It makes too much money, whether there's belts on the line or not.
So this year, next year, they'll fight each other. So that's definitely out of my wish list because I could care less if they fight each other. I think just keep it going. Usyk, I'm going to say I don't know what would bring Usyk out to fight again. Who else? There's nobody left to beat. There's nothing left for him to do. If I'm Usyk, like he said, go hang out with your kids and move on. He's got nothing to prove. Usyk, there's no point in him coming back. Who's left? He's already beat all the guys. There's nothing. I like to see Zhang fight a couple of times this year. I just like watching him fight because there's always something going to happen because he's so big. Yeah, heavyweight could just keep going. There's no real. I would like to see Itoma stepped up, maybe fight at least three times this year, and maybe that third fight be like a real step up. Maybe I wouldn't mind seeing him versus Torres this year. Maybe that third fight of the year for both of them because you got to cash out. You got to find out what Torres has got because look at who he's fighting. He's fighting absolute god-awful trash.
And I think he's better than Jared Anderson, but we saw how everything ended for Jared Anderson.
So if I had to wish list, I'd like to see Torres stepped up to something, see what he could do. I think everything else is kind of going the way it should be going. Let's see if Dubois beats Parker. You're kind of stuck with Dubois is if he beats Parker, who's he going to fight? He's already beat Joshua. Usyk's already, I guess you could try to rematch Usyk, but Usyk, why would he even care to take that rematch? So Dubois is he'll be kind of stuck in a little holding pattern because there's not a ton of obvious fights where he's going to go for. So Anderson, I think if I had a wish list, I'm going to say this. Let's step Torres up. I want to see Itoma fight somebody real because I think I told everybody that McKean was trash, and he was. And I want to see that, and I want to see. Oh God, I just said it. I want to see Vicoli get a shot. I think Vicoli's earned the right to get a world title shot this year. So my top three is Itoma stepped up to a real body. Torres, same thing. Even if it's fighting each other, and I want Vicoli to get a shot. Get him in there. Get him some kind of world title shot. I think he has earned the right. I mean, look at the guys that are getting these chances. I mean, we'll probably see Dillian White get a world title shot this year before Vicoli does.
Oh, fuck me.
And I could bet money we probably will. So get him in there. But knowing how boxing goes, we'll probably see Torres fight Ebenezer Tete, or Itoma will fight Tete. That'll probably be the fight they're going to make. Vicoli will get ducked. He won't get a shot, and that's probably what's going to happen. But yeah, Torres is our only American. And also, Deontay Wilder's coming back. He said he's coming back.
He's fighting Stephen Smith in April.
Yeah, that's only
Stephen Shaw.
Yeah, that's only 4 hours from my house. That's a BLK Prime. I think Haney might be on that card too, so I will definitely go to that just because I've been to like 3 Wilder fights. I might as well go to a 4th one.
Fucking A.
And so I'll go to that one if it's not a far drive. But yeah, Wilder Well, wow, I don't know what he's coming back for. I guess he's just got nothing else to do. I guess his solo R&B album ain't working out well.
Damn it. Fucking
I hope
I'm not gonna
Clarissa
tell him.
Yeah, I don't know. We hope Clarissa Shields wins maybe she'll win a Grammy or she'll win an Academy Award for her movie. And so yeah, that's what I hope.
Yeah, I'd like to see Vicoli
Wonder will
fight.
Malik Scott win any awards for his movies?
Jesus.
Hey, he's talented though.
He's fucking talented, is right. After marrying Ted Abdo, he's fucking super talented. Jesus Christ.
I'd like to see Vicoli fight Kabayel or Dubois this year, or both. That'd be wonderful.
Caballel's got
I would love Big Turkey to get his hands on the 135 and 40-pound division and sort it out down there and wave enough paychecks to get them all in the ring. Tank Davis, I fucking love Tank Davis, man. I've been such a big fan of Tank Davis. He's been a mainstay from my time on the pod. When I first started out, he was traveling to England. He was just after beating Pedraza, and he was traveling to England to fight Liam Welsh, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Some Liam, and he absolutely fucking obliterated him. And ever since then, they just matched him so carefully. They've jumped him up to get a handy title off Barrios, who gave him a bit of problems. It has to be said. He is box office. He's everything that the sports need, but he's managing himself, or Al is maneuvering him in this way that he's able to make massive paydays because he generates so much interest. But the opposition level has to fucking improve. These last couple of fights, ever since the Garcia one, it just hasn't been there. And there's so many fights to make. So if Turkey can get a big checkbook out and get him and Shakur, him and Devin, him and Teofimo, all them to fucking get it on finally. There's been 5 years of fucking posturing from all of these guys. None of them are fighting each other. So I love those divisions. I love 35 up to 47 always. 60's always been a favorite of mine. But I just like watching good fighters, and I think all the good fighters or potentially great fighters are down there. Plus, there's tons of prospects as well in and around those divisions that are going to make statements this year. You got your not prospects, you're the world champions now at this stage, but you got your Abdullah Mason, you've got your Keyshawn, you've got all these guys down there that are coming up as well. You don't want them being deprived of the chance to be the man themselves because all these other guys haven't fought each other, and they just end up keeping on that same trajectory of having one champion per belt per division. You know what I mean? Let's just get them all in. So that'll be my hope for the next year, that kind of division, those two weight classes down there sort themselves out, and you start to see a star come through to replace the fill the vacuum that's been left by Bud going north. You had this with Floyd a couple of years ago and Manny Woods. The two of them left the welterweight division. You had all the pretenders to the throne. You had Errol Spence, you had Keith Thurman, you had Bud Crawford, and we had to kind of see the natural progression of that, even though PBC did a great job of keeping it all to themselves. Charlo, all these guys, you had to kind of see them out against each other. And too many times before Turkey Al-Sheikh was involved in the sport, we got these fights that were always touted that just passed like ships in the night. You could say Joshua Fury's won. You can say there's been tons of them, like your Wilder Fury, Wilder and AJ should have happened. There's so many fights that just went to begging, and the same down at this. We haven't seen Teo versus anyone. We haven't seen Haney versus anyone. We haven't seen Ryan Garcia versus anyone. We haven't really seen Shakur in that big marquee fight. We need big marquee fights in that division because that's where all the money is. That's where all the stars are. And to be honest with you, that's where a lot of the talent is in boxing. So the surgery, I'd say, to bring people into the sports needs to happen there. And then hopefully that plays out. In terms of the heavyweights, for commercial value, give us Fury and AJ now. If we didn't get it in the prime, give us it now. It'd be painful for us. It'd almost be for us like hardcores or whatever, for want of a better term. It'd be like pulling teeth at this stage, wouldn't it? Because you're going to get all the shitty banter, you're going to get all the big fucking marquee glitz and glamour rollout for the fight. It's not going to deliver as a contest for what it could have been a couple of years ago, but I think it's probably maybe even more entertaining now because both of them are also ran. If you listen to Simon Jordan, they're definitely not that for me, but both of them are kind of the fucking bridesmaids now, aren't they? Like, so let them have it. Let them fight out for the fucking bouquet there. It's going to generate a shit ton of cash. It's going to give that interest to the man in the street. You just know your workplace is going to be full of people talking about AJ and Fury, even still. So yeah, let's have it. They're going to have it anyway, so you might as well get that one out of the way, and then free up a bit of bandwidth for the belts then to move to the guys who deserve them. I think Itoma is ultimately going to fill the vacuum left by Usyk when he leaves the sport. I'm not saying he's going to live up to and be as good as Usyk, but he's shown everything at the early stages, like he has all the tools. Now we have to see him come through a bit of fire, as Teddy Atlas would say. We definitely do see him have to kind of overcome some adversity. I think a very difficult fight for him would be someone who Justin mentioned. I think Atoma versus Bacoli will be a massive test as you're moving him up the levels. If he's going to be a world champion, he's got in that division when the guys are that big, he's going to have to fucking beat big guys like that, like a Zhang or a Bacoli. So if he could knock over guys like that, then you'd have to say he's a scary, scary guy. Like, so I think a fight like that towards the end of the year for him would be good if you see him active. But generally, there's no super fight out there that I actually just dying to see now again. We've had Beterbiev, Bivol. We're going to get the rematch to see a definitive winner in that duel, and then we've had everything else that we can have. I think between Bud and Canelo one doesn't do anything for me. I think it's just again another kind of fight for the casuals. So doesn't really do much for me. But I wouldn't rule that out either at some stage.
Yeah, just yeah, that was a good conversation. Yeah, we got across. There's a few of those that we discussed are going to happen. There was definitely some pie in the sky bullshit in there from the random choice. But as far as it goes, I think we're going to get a fair bit of what we discussed, which is far more than we might have said in years past. But as people might have known, I just want to touch on these because, like I said, I think we'll probably take next week off. It's been a little bit slow, but Yi Jun Kim is the replacement for Sam Goodman. Yi Jun Kim lost 3 fights ago to 14-9 Rob Diesel. I'd love to say I'm excited about this upcoming card with Inoue. Goodman was at least slightly interesting, but this not a whole lot going on here. You got the highly ranked welterweight Jin Sasaki on there. But I mean, he's going against a guy who's 29-14-3. So this is obviously a very disappointing card as far as it goes, unfortunately. I don't know. I'd expect this probably to be the worst thing that's happened to Korea in the last 30 days. So we'll see what happens. Anyhow. Nothing? I swear. I wasted on you. Let's see here. And then we got let's see here. And then this this is a card I think is a little bit underrated. Actually, we'll save this one for last. This card is going to be in Nottingham on January 25th. We got a couple of decent fights on here. I don't know much about Reese Farnhill and Mark Dickinson. Maybe a bit about Dickinson. I feel like I've seen some of him for Farnhill's British super middleweight title. You got Ellie Scottney against Maya Motu, a women's junior featherweight fight. I know you might not be into that fight. Harry Scarf against Conor Walker. That one's actually very close with the books. And Dalton Smith against Waleed Uiza. I think is how you could say that. Des, any thoughts on that one?
No, this is a DAZN card, and it's just Eddie getting Dalton out, and of course Harry Scarf and Ellie Scottney. But there's no surprises here. This is not wanting to sort of go down this rabbit hole of the machinations of networks now and promoters. But if it's not got Riyadh season attached to it, this is what we're getting. So this is a standard card now. Dalton Smith being ticked over, Harry Scarf's the same, Ellie Scottney is the same. No surprises. Perhaps Harry Scarf, Conor Walker is a sort of a really good fight, but it's I think Harry Scarf beats Conor Walker in a really exciting fight, but that's about as good as this one gets, mate. I can't talk it up. Last night, what we saw on Sky is what we're going to get now if it hasn't got Riyadh season attached to it.
Yeah, that's sad. Unfortunately,
It is sad. And when people that don't know boxing say to me, boxing's never been so good, I have to explain to them, no, we're in a state of feast or famine, and this is the famine.
Yeah, that's definitely a famine as far as that goes. But lucky for us, that evening on DAZN, there's a pretty good card. Justin, I'm actually looking forward to this one a little bit. I'm not going to touch on the ones at the bottom here, but the 10 rounds and up ones. We got Tito Mercado continuing his quest for a title, going in against Jose Pedraza, his first fight over on the DAZN side of things, back at 140 pounds after his disaster at 135, trying to make it again against Keyshawn Davis. Andy Cruz is going to be in there against Omar Salcido. Unfortunately, early on, we didn't get any Andy Cruz in there, even though he was part of my 135 stack of papers. But the main event actually is an interesting one. Two undefeated fighters, Diego Pacheco and Steven Nelson. Justin, this actually, for January 25th, this might be the first pretty good card of the year, honestly.
Yeah, because, I mean, all those guys are good young guys we want to see. I mean, Pedraza, God, they keep recycling that guy. And he keeps taking it. I guess he just loves boxing because, I mean, he can't be getting paid a lot for these fights, and he just keeps answering the phone. I guess every time they call, I don't think he's ever turned down a fight in his life because he always shows up. Mercado should get through Pedraza. I mean, Pedraza doesn't have anything left. So that's going to be but everybody I like to watch Andy Cruz. I think he's ready. I think you talk about guys ready this year. I think he's ready. I think he'll be ready this year. I think he's ready for a world title. I mean, you might as well put him in there with all that all the amateur stuff he's got, and he's shown pretty well so far. I think he's ready to go this year. And yeah, I like the Pacheco fight versus Nelson. Is Nelson one of the Crawford guys?
Yeah, he's fighting out of the gym.
Yeah. Oh, I think Pacheco will get him. I've never been impressed with Nelson. I think Pacheco will get him. So yeah, this is way better than the DAZN card. I mean, God, it's not even a comparison, but it'll be interesting. But I mean, I'll say this: Pedraza will show up. So Mercado, it will give him, he will give resistance. I just don't think he's got anything left. And Cruz really finished his last fight pretty strong, so I think he'll stop his guy. So yeah, it's decent for this. You know how it is. January sucks. Usually, always is bad for boxing. So this is not a bad card, especially for more of the. I guess you have to use the word hardcore, but I guess for guys like us, this is our kind of card. There's no for the regular people, the names don't stand out as much, but this is the kind of cards we like.
Oh, absolutely. And the guy Cruz is going against is only once defeated. That was on a pro box card against a fellow undefeated fighter. So it's Cruz he's taken some interesting steps on there. I just want to check and see if there's anything else apart from what ESPN had listed. So also on that card, got a 9-0 Leonardo Rubalcava against Israel Mercado. I don't know if that's Tito's kin, but he's 11-1 at the time. Rubalcava is 9-0 currently, so that one might be an interesting enough fight. So we shall see here. But yeah, it's and that Pacheco against Nelson fight is good. Like if Nelson really wants a chance, he's going to have to take out a fighter like Pacheco to get anywhere near a Canelo fight. So we'll see what happens as far as that goes. But yeah, anyhow, that was a good conversation. Does anyone have anything else to say before we bounce out of here? Right on. I like that kind of solidarity. So yeah, I think we're going to miss next week, but we will see you folks a week from then, and we'll review these cards that we discussed, including Inoue, the Pacheco and Nelson fight, and that's going to be our preview episode for the David Benavidez versus David Morrell fight. So really looking forward to that one. There's some good stuff coming our way in February, so fear not. It might be a little slow right now, boxing fans, but good stuff is definitely on the way. So I'd like to thank Justin, Dez, and Rob Kelly for taking part in this podcast today. It's been a good time, and also for everybody in the chat. I appreciate your continued support for the podcast. I've been your host, Matt DiGianardo, and you folks have yourself a fantastic week ahead.